You're listening to KDU Campus Radio.
Welcome to Generation Future Ready, Gen FR for short, a brand new podcast series that's powered by Petrosains and the KDU School of Communications and Creative Arts. With their powers combined, we have a great show where we're going to talk with industry leaders and experts on the challenges and opportunities of a fast-changing future. It doesn't hurt to wonder, how will our lives be impacted today? How should we equip ourselves with the right knowledge to be future ready? All these questions and more as we explore and discover with our lineup of guests every week. So for this first month, our theme is on entrepreneurship and social innovation, where we explore a society where businesses are a force for good, inclusive, and create meaningful impact. And in our very first episode today, two exciting guests are here with us in the studio. They will be speaking with me about impact-driven enterprises. In short, businesses for good. So how is that possible? And if so, how and what are some of the opportunities and challenges ahead? And why are impact-driven enterprises increasingly important and popular, especially with the younger generation like ours? So let's welcome our guests. Wan Dazriq, the Program Director of the Malaysian Social Inclusion and Vibrant Entrepreneurship Massive at Malaysian Global Innovation and Creative Center, MAGIC. And Dr. Daniel Loy, the Director of Creative Learning and Innovation at Petrosains. Hello.
Hello.
So that's all the introduction around. Let's start with Dazriq. So you have a really long title. You have a long title and I messed that up. I'm so sorry. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what do you do at MAGIC and what is MAGIC all about? Does it actually do anything with MAGIC?
Right. Thank you so much for having me here. Firstly, so just a bit of a quick introduction, I guess. So I actually work in MAGIC for about good 4 years now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So the whole intent of my portfolio is actually really try to cultivate or encourage people do entrepreneurship, but actually for good, whether it's impacting the environment or the society. Hence why I guess the long title came about. So it's social inclusion and vibrant entrepreneurship. So the whole intent was really trying to see if you do entrepreneurship by doing businesses or ventures, but can you actually influence people's lives or even, contribute back to the environment.
So it's all about positive contribution and
yes,
everything.
yes,
That is
yes.
super cool.
Yeah. And then we've seen, and I'm happy to share later with regards to some of the practitioners or entrepreneurs that are actually doing that. And we hope to have more of those in Malaysia, especially for the youth. And because, youth are beyond just creating profit, money, and, profit maximization for themselves. It's also about trying to create that, contribute back to the society. So yeah.
You want it to be something that just gives back.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually visited MAGIC on a field trip a couple of years ago, and it was such a nice atmosphere,
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, but I can't do magic tricks, so.
It's okay. The true magic trick is giving back.
Yes.
That's right. So, can you share a little bit about the current entrepreneurial ecosystem in Malaysia? Like, do we have a good mix of entrepreneurs spread across the different industries and sectors, or is it all just kind of segregated into one particular industry?
Right. So I guess there's a couple of angles you're going to see this. So one is actually with regards to the startups or entrepreneurs that are associated to MAGIC. Mm-hmm. So when MAGIC was started, I think a lot of technopreneurs leveraged to MAGIC. And that's because I think the startup scene was really about technology.
Yeah.
Probably the highest growth rate is actually with regards to technology development. But where we see now, after 3 or 4 years since the inception of MAGIC, there's a bit more diversity with regards to ventures or startups that people are more accustomed to. So there's also this notion of social entrepreneurship that youth nowadays are more inclined to just beyond just making money, tech startup per se. So in terms of industries, and this is probably where we see a lot more of social innovation comes in, but also leveraging with stuff with regards to Industry Revolution 4.0. So that doesn't mean tech businesses or tech startup would be a standalone, but there's also an impactful element that entrepreneurs are leveraging technology and also trying to use technology to contribute back to society or environment. So things around healthcare, things around smart cities, things around agriculture, and even fintech. So those are the areas that we see more entrepreneurs are more inclined to be doing more of. But there's always the social innovation element infused within all those common themes. And we foresee that I think Malaysia has the potential, or the Malaysian youth has the potential of growing that space. But now it's actually just making sure they have the right platform, the right guidance, the right opportunities of doing so. So I guess that's where Magic, aspire to play that role in terms of nurturing and also ensuring the sustainability of these entrepreneurs while they venture into these various sectors that complements to IR 4.0 moving forward. So that's kind of interesting, I guess.
And now to Dr. Daniel Loy from Petrosains. So can you tell us about what you do and your department known as the Center of Learning and Innovation? Like, what does it do essentially?
So my role and my team is really to help Petrosains as a science center be more ready, to be more relevant, and to also be playing a role that's more meaningful in society. So we have done a lot of stuff over the last 20 years of our existence, but I think we can do a lot more. And by looking at the new models, new innovations, and new approaches, this is how we can rally all together.
That's really exciting. I like that everything is just coming together now. It's such a good feeling, and it's just nice to see how everything's just flowing together and all that. So in the last few years, I personally noticed, as somebody who's been going to Petrosains since I was in kindergarten, I noticed that Petrosains has been doing all sorts of new offerings, more for the youth and young adults. It's more for that particular audience. It gave me the kind of impression that Petrosains is reinventing itself towards a new direction. So is that true? And if so, how?
Well, we've always had an approach that science centers are for all, that we've been trying to be inclusive to all audiences. But I think the previous style of engagement is more, we design something and then we open it up for other people to explore and experience it.
Right.
The change has been quite significant is that we've been more involved with co-creation and really to work through communities and companies like with Magic to make sure that our offerings are not only STEM focused, but also applicable and relevant to everyday life.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's why you see it a bit more, visible and more meaningful.
Yeah. It's less on the... I guess it doesn't seem so family orientated, and now it's more like, I'm here and it's there for me.
That's great.
It's a nice feeling. It's good. So innovation is the buzzword for today, as we can tell. So when it comes to social innovation, what does it actually mean? Can the both of you kind of break it down more for our listeners? So we can start with Dr. Daniel.
Well, with innovation, it's always about the application of something that is different and creative and giving us a different result. With social innovation, it's quite interesting because it's not so much on the innovation element per se. The social word is the one that gives it a lot of construct. It kind of suggests that the innovation or the change comes from society, comes from people. It is a grounds-up innovation as opposed to a top-down process.
Right.
So you see a lot of interesting things with social innovation because it's led by the people, it's led by necessity, it's led by need. So it's quite a very interesting space to be in. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. No, I think Dr. Dan have articulated it quite well. The only thing that I might add is actually social innovation is, from a practitioner lens, it could be something taking existing technology or existing, applications, improve on it just to deliver better solutions or products to the society, for example. So, I think an entrepreneurial lens is actually trying to do more of that as opposed to creating new products, but it's almost as a re-engineering of whatever is existing, try to fit that to the current, atmosphere, market, or demand to that extent. So
basically, even the newest solutions are built on what's already existing and just kind of changing it for the situation.
Yes.
And also, innovation is born out of need. It is born out of what society is looking for at that moment. All right, so that's the buzzword innovation for today. And I think that wraps up this first segment. So we are going to go just give the listeners a little break to have some chill tunes, and then we'll be right back. So you're listening to Generation Future Ready, powered by Petrosains and KDU School of Communication and Creative Arts.
You're listening to KDU Campus Radio.
And welcome back to Generation Future Ready. I'm Sophie, and today here in the studio, we are here with Wan Dazriq, the Program Director at the Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Center, MAGIC, and Dr. Daniel Loy, the Director of Center of Learning and Innovation at Petrosains. This podcast is brought to you by Petrosains and in collaboration with KDU School of Communication and Creative Arts. And today's topic is impact-driven enterprises. So, back to our guests. Dazriq, you work with many young and budding entrepreneurs. Can you tell us what the difference between an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur is? We didn't really touch on it earlier, so what's the big difference aside from the word?
So I think entrepreneur, I think we've mentioned a bit about innovation, right? So a lot of things entrepreneur try to do is actually trying to instill some form of creativity and innovation to whatever ventures they're doing. But I like to extend that, and this is probably the biggest distinguished of what is an entrepreneur and social entrepreneur, right? So if I'm going to say to a layman, right, so a social entrepreneur has to have two key characteristics. So I would say that he or she has to have a heart of Mother Teresa and a mind of someone like Richard Branson. So it's about having that business acumen, but have the heart to do good through his or her businesses. So it's almost like having a two lens. And I'm going to give you a bit of a illustration. How is it different from just having a good heart, right? So most people who have a good heart is just by virtue of being a volunteer or start a non-government organization or just a foundation. That is all well and said, but I think where social entrepreneurship slightly differ from that is actually it provides the lens of sustainability, and that sustainability coming from the business model. So a lot of social entrepreneurs, when they came in, not having the mindset of making profit maximization with their business, but good enough to sustain. And in Malaysia, we see a lot of contacts of NGOs, foundations and stuff like that are becoming that self-sustaining, just by virtue of they're not receiving significant amount of donation, they're not receiving significant amount of grants anymore.
So they're kind of taking it into their own hands in that sense.
Yeah, so they've started to actually monetize their products or services.
Right.
Again, it's not about market competitiveness or market rate or whatever it is, but just good enough to sustain. In that, I see that as an essence of principle of social entrepreneurship, and how it differs from a normal entrepreneurship is actually maybe you start your ventures, you wanna get a lot of investment opportunities and stuff like that, and exit as fast as you can, as long as you make money. So social entrepreneurship is having both of that: business acumen, make profit, but also with the intent of doing good to the society or the environment. So again, hence why it's a heart of Mother Teresa and
the mind of Richard Branson. Everyone always says Richard Branson when it comes to those kinds of questions.
It could be anyone else.
So what kind of backgrounds do these social entrepreneurs usually come from? Like, is there a specific type of person that you see, or is it a bit more diverse?
So I can say diverse, but most of it is actually coming from the youth or the Gen Y sort of space, who really want to do good and also, make money at the same time.
Social entrepreneurship is really big right now. And let's say that if my friends or some of our listeners, have some good ideas that we feel can be the basis for a business that can address some of these issues, something that we really feel that we can pour our heart and soul into it, it can help the community. So what programs do MAGIC have to help these aspiring social entrepreneurs who are passionate about these causes?
I would start with an academy program, and it could be just workshops and things around the basic fundamentals of running an entrepreneurship, businesses and stuff like that. So we do have complementary programs to what private sectors are doing. So I know Petrosains also are doing things around design thinking and stuff like that, which I think could give a bit of a test background or basic knowledge in terms of how to start. So that's one. Secondly is actually if, for example, you're full-fledged becoming or die want to become a social entrepreneur or become an entrepreneur and stuff like that, we have a slightly longer programs. It's the accelerator program. So the accelerator program probably ranging from 6 weeks to 4 months. But that one you probably have to be a bit more at a slightly more, I guess, matured stage with regards to your businesses. So you probably need to have a bit of a minimum viable product. You have start something that now is actually saying that, look, I have a product, I have a solutions that I want to bring to market. So within that 6 weeks or 4 months, would groom you like almost on a daily basis. How do you do a business model? How do you meet your customers? Marketing, fundraising, and even pitching to investors in that light. But I guess the very basic that you could probably do is actually go to some of our academic programs, maybe the shorter ones, see if it makes sense, see if this is something that you want to do in the long term. If it's not, then at least you've learned something. If it's something that you say, okay, I'm passionate about, I want to do this more, then you could go to our longer programs in that sense.
So the longer program that you mentioned, sorry, what is the name of that?
It's our accelerator program. So we at the moment we have two. One is actually global accelerator program. So this is where we have some of the Malaysians as well as some participants coming from abroad. To be part in that 4 months program.
Okay.
Secondly is the Impact-Driven Enterprise Accelerator program. So this is a slightly shorter program. It's only about 6 weeks. But 6 weeks in a sense is good enough to give a bit of a basic fundamental knowledge or expertise in terms of how you should run your impact-driven enterprises.
Okay, all right. It's nice to know that there's like 2 different levels. So, depending on like how far you are in the game, it's kind of tailored to what you can do.
And some of the smaller programs like design thinking, blue ocean strategies, marketing, the 2-3 days sort of courses is something that we also offer just for dubbing.
Just for like a taste of it.
Yeah, just for a taste of it, and for budding entrepreneurs saying, okay, I want to try this and see if it makes sense. Yes.
I shall inform my friends about all these accelerators, and also our listeners, they can know about this. So, Dr. Daniel, how is Petrosains collaborating with Magic to promote social innovation? And why do you think it's important nowadays that company play a role in this kind of innovation?
So we set up the Center of Learning Innovation in 2016, and our first partner was actually Magic.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's symbolic and it's important for many reasons. I think being in the space, we kind of realized that there's a lot of change happening across society, and in the social innovation space with social entrepreneurs particularly, there's a lot of heart, like Dazriq said, a lot of good attempts to try to make the change sustainable and visible, but oftentimes they may overlap, or they may be only in areas where it might be a bit more of a lower hanging fruit. So the challenge is this: how do you raise the profile of these social entrepreneurs? How do you challenge them to take up bigger challenges that are more meaningful and more difficult but high returns? So with Magic, we work across a few fronts. Primarily, it's really to raise the visibility of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, so that they take on projects or problems that are perhaps more important for society in the longer term. Not in 5 or 10 years, but maybe 20, 30 years. Water scarcity, the air quality. These are these are opportunities where oftentimes small entrepreneurs may not take up because it sounds too big. But probably more information, more support, they can consider it. So we have also provided some more actionable support. In our gift shops in KLCC, we have a corner where we have, we call it SE Corner or the Magic Corner. So where the social enterprise from Magic can have a showcase or at least a retail front in KLCC.
I've seen it before.
Yeah, great.
I've seen it before, yeah. It's like this one area, right?
Yeah, you can see all the Magic colors around
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can buy anything from t-shirts to cookies to bags, So there's it's a good opportunity for public to be more informed and aware while doing the shopping.
Yeah.
We also provide mentorship to the accelerator programs, and we provide access to our facilities, not only in KLCC but also in our satellite centers in Johor, Pahang, Sabah and Sarawak, for the entrepreneurs to have access to do programming or to do engagement with the public.
Okay.
So these are the ways that we have been working together. Now, in terms of why companies should support social innovation, I think it's something that is also very important for companies to look into, because innovation is really for everybody. And a company who is invested in social innovation might find new ideas for products and services. It will keep them more relevant, I think, in the game.
Yeah.
And I think working together is ultimately the main goal. Solving society problems is not only for social entrepreneurs, it's for all of us, whether you're in government or whether you're in corporate. It is our role. It's one planet, it's one responsibility. So I think it's good to encourage this higher profile of these problems, these issues, and to support the whole space in general. So companies really should play a bigger part.
Yeah, you want to make it seem more mainstream so that more people be inclined to do it,
Definitely,
right?
definitely.
Yeah, exactly. That's really cool. And we are going to take a quick break. We're going to play some really fun songs to kind of fit the mood. innovative songs, I guess. And then we're going to be right back. So you're listening to Generation Future Ready, powered by Petrosains and KDU School of Communication and Creative Arts.
You're listening to KDU Campus Radio.
And welcome back to Generation Future Ready. I'm Sophie, and today in the studio with us are Wan Dazriq, the Program Director at the Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Center, Magic, I got that right this time, and Dr. Daniel Loy, the Director of Center of Learning and Innovation at Petrosains. Today's topic is impact-driven enterprises, and right now we are going to kind of play a little game. The game is called Have You Never Ever? The idea of the game is that we're going to get to know you both a little bit better, and I'll ask you some questions, and I want you to answer honestly and quickly. If you've done it before, you say, I have, and you can kind of raise your little sign. And if you have not done it, you say never, and you can raise the other side of your little sign. So are you both ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so first question. Have you never ever done badly in your studies?
I have done badly in studies.
We all have done badly. So which subject really kind of got you, and how did that go? Also, at what point in your life, actually? That's another good question.
For me, it was chemistry.
Oh.
And I guess in forms 4, 5, I really suck at it. I can't really make sense of all the neutrons and electrons and chemistry tables and stuff like that. I couldn't just...
So you did pure science when you were about to do your SPM?
Oh no, I did IT science.
Oh,
so,
wow, okay.
Yeah, so part of that was physics and chemistry, but I just can't make sense of chemistry.
All the formulas.
Yeah, so I really had to just memorize and not take a lot of appreciation out of it. So that's probably my biggest struggle. But I passed though. But it's not it's not a commendable grade. But I just say I passed.
Well, the thing is that you did it. You made it out alive, and that's the important part.
Oh yeah. But I never appreciate it. So.
So Dr. Daniel, how about you?
Well, let me start off by saying that it's okay to fail in class in school.
It is.
And I would recommend it heavily as an educator. It's an experience that I think is much more enriching than opposed to just passing everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't know how to progress if you haven't failed before.
Exactly,
That's just how it is.
So, yeah, well, I have a lot of ups and downs in school. I never really enjoyed school. So there were points in my life in school where I would be in the top 10 in the class. There were some points where the last 5 in the class. It would depend on my mood, honestly. So I did well in most subjects except for math. I didn't do so well in moral and history. It really changes according to the year, honestly. So I think the issue with this is that we learn at different times and at different pace.
Yes.
School compresses that into that one duration. So I think it's only fair that kids understand that, if you don't do well in one point of your life, it's okay. You may do well in the next part of your life. Just have the openness ready. Yeah.
Oh man, 16-year-old me is like, if she was listening to this, like she'd be freaking out because like when you're in that bubble of school, it's like if you fail, you die.
Yeah.
I know. You have to break the bubble. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So our next question is: have you never ever faced a career dilemma?
I have faced a career dilemma.
You both have. So share with us your experience on how you overcame that.
So there's, I guess, 2 points for me. So one is actually after I graduated.
Oh.
So I actually studied international business, commercial law, and money and finance for some reason. And none of them I'm practicing it today. But when I started back then, so when I finished studying back then, so I was wondering whether should I go to, the big fours, the banks, or, accounting firms and stuff like that. But then I decided to explore the management consulting side of it, because I thought that's a more vibrant and dynamic industries to that, and it gives me the opportunity to learn more on the job, as opposed of doing audit work for 2-3 years. So that was one. So I kind of like made the decision, and I'm happy that I made the decision, because I think aside from papers, qualifications and stuff like that, students or youth or individuals should actually see what's the most value added when they do the job, and that's beyond the routine job, and what they really want to get out of from that career. So that was kind of like my mindset when I even started. So the second point was actually when I joined Magic, especially on the social entrepreneurship space. I kind of like well known that, what is this social enterprise space? It's not even existent when it's back in 2015. So people were a bit skeptical if I'm sharing my thoughts, like, how do you want to make business and do good? Isn't that like a oxymoron? Right? You can't do good while do business and stuff like that. So I kind of like took that as like a challenge, and I kind of like used that as a motivation for me to be part in the social entrepreneurship space back in 2015. And also, I guess, and this is me reflecting, I think that move was actually a key point for me as well, because otherwise I would be staying in corporate for the longest time, and I might not satisfy my passion in terms of exploring doing business for good. So that was my career dilemma. But I didn't, and this is probably my advice also, if you think that you want to do something, just do it. I mean, it could work, it could not work, but at least you tried, as opposed of not trying and you regret about it. So I think so far, I've been blessed with the opportunities that I have, and I think that's kind of like my advice, like just do it and see how it goes, I guess.
And as we were saying earlier, even if you don't succeed, you learn from it.
Yes.
That's the important thing. So there's always something to take away from it. That being said, Dr. Daniel, so what was your career dilemma?
Well, my first job was in a startup. So in the startup, there were 5 of us, 1 founder and then 4
small
employees.
Startup.
Yeah, very small startup. And in a size that small, you do everything and anything.
Yeah.
So it was a great learning experience. It was decent pay, but it wasn't something I loved. I didn't enjoy it because of the nature of the work and the nature of the way the company was run. So I had to make a decision about leaving the company, and because when you're first in the first job, money is important, and you're struggling to make ends meet.
And then like when you want to leave it, it's like should I not?
So I actually had to make quite a severe pay cut to make a leap into an industry that I like, which was education. But I never regretted it since. It was really for the better. You cannot stay in a place where you don't have the heart for it, or it doesn't make any sense to you. So yes, you have to cut down on certain expenses and live a bit more frugally for a few more years, but it was for the better. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Like, you were able to do your passion. Because a lot of people are off the mindset that, like, if I'm going to do a business, then, like, it's got to be something that pays well, but they don't really think about, like, their heart, if it's in it or not. We are going to go back to some music, and then we are going to enter our final talk set. So you've been listening to Generation Future Ready, powered by Petrosains and KDU School of Communication and Creative Arts.
You're listening to KDU Campus Radio.
And welcome back to the final segment of Generation Future Ready with me, Sophie. This podcast is presented by Petrosains and KDU School of Communication and Creative Arts. So the show is almost over, and before it is, we are going to dig a little deeper into the minds of our esteemed guests and get some advice from the both of them. The idea of building a startup is slowly becoming very appealing to the general public, especially the youth, right, as we've talked about. They see it, my friends especially, and I guess some of our listeners, they see being an entrepreneur, or social entrepreneur maybe, that it's very like sexy and cool because it's this new hot thing and you're not necessarily tied down to a corporate entity or whatever, right? Sometimes they forget that entrepreneurship in general, it's really a lot of hard work. I think maybe 9 out of 10 startups don't actually make it in today's market. You really need the discipline to make sure it stays running, let alone get it off the ground. Everybody can have an idea, not everybody can make it successful, right? So in your experience, the both of you, what are some of the challenges that you can expect as an entrepreneur, and how can a startup be sustainable?
Probably give us 3 quick inputs, 3 points with regards to that. One is actually be very clear in terms of why you want to start to begin with, because that set the tone of how you're going to progress moving forward. So is it you want to start a startup to make money? Is it you want to start a startup to do good while doing business and stuff like that? Because whatever the business model you're going to apply, whatever the challenges that it may come, if you have the right intent and passion, chances are you'll be resilient, and chances are you'll be persevering through. Even if you change your business model, even if you change, but your dynamics, your team might change and stuff like that. But as long as you have that intent, your core intent is intact, chances are you will be successful anyway. Secondly is with regards, so I think the common themes of this session was failing, right? So I know in Malaysian culture, probably failure is seem like a taboo to some extent. If you know you're going to fail, you're not going to start. Or at least that's what, we've been told most of the time. But again, what Dr. Daniel and myself have been saying is actually it's okay to fail, but know your limits. Know your sort of comfort sort of perimeters, I guess. So not to say that you should fail in school, but you need to have a good balance in terms of knowing what basically your risk level at, and what's your comprehension of what that failure means to you and how you're going to progress along. So failing is okay for as long as you learn something or you get something out of it, because I see failure as a journey. It's something as lessons that probably you would learn or you would actually value for the rest of your life, because as opposed of spoon feeding, right?
Yeah.
So the third one is making it sustainable. This is with regards to character. Be professional. Chances are, even if you're growing and stuff like that, you probably get a bit of distractions, I guess, with all the medias or the marketing side of it, or people want to tell stories out of you and stuff like that. But I think you need to have a certain of professionalism, and even if it's running a startup, so it's not just corporates or government, but once people see that of you, you build your own character, and I think that's more important than the hard skills of doing business model, financials and stuff like that, because that would actually set the foundation regardless of what stage you are in, whether you're just starting or you're growing your startup, or doing mergers or even exiting. I think that's probably the key three areas that would actually thrive you moving forward.
I guess one of the main things to take away is like fail, but with value and purpose.
Yeah, and intent with the right character, you'll probably be alright.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So what about you, Dr. Daniel? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I echo Dazriq a lot in the sense that a lot of people see entrepreneurship as a process. If I use a metaphor, it's like shooting an arrow at a target.
Right.
It's like you want to hit it at one go, with one clear direction and one clear purpose, but it's not like that at all. For me, it's more like a river, crossing a river on lily pads, like a frog. You lip. You might fall a bit, you might struggle a bit, but then you find another lily pad and you hop on again. But you want to reach the other end of the river. So it's not a direct route, I feel. It is a route that may have a lot of obstacles along the way. And some of these are necessary obstacles because there are changes every time in society, in demographics, in demands and needs. So you have to adapt to that. Your solution today might not be relevant in 20 years. So you cannot be so hard-headed on your solution that you forget about everything else. So I think the whole idea of intent is that you have a clear mission of what you're trying to help and solve, but you are able to respond to that mission in various ways that makes sense to the business. So I think that's a whole journey. It might not be as sexy as like hitting an arrow. Frogs on lily pads, not sexy at all. But that's a whole process, I feel. And I think that if entrepreneurs understand that, they'll be more open to failing as a process, as opposed to failing as failing.
What do the both of you hope to see more in entrepreneurship and social innovation in Malaysia?
I think for me, there's two facets to this question. In terms of the entrepreneurs, I would like to see more people who are more ready and more courageous. And let me explain that a little bit. So I think entrepreneurship is a bit like it's a journey, like we talk about. And oftentimes people try to jump into it because they think it's something that they can do right away. Yeah. It's not like you can't learn how to swim by jumping into a pool, or you shouldn't do that. So I always feel that like Dazriq said, in Magic there's the academic programs. There are many small things you can do first to kind of really test the waters, build your business viability, have some validation in terms of doing some prototypes of the product. Take the small steps as much as you can before really making a big step. And this will be very useful in the early part of the business. And in terms of being more courageous, a lot of times there are attempts to look into convenient problems, things that like faster shipping, door-to-door delivery. Those things sound easy to do, but there's lots of people doing that already. It's also useful to also consider some bigger problems, and bigger problems might be more challenging, but if it's more meaningful, you find more support. People are willing to come on board with you and help you out because you're solving a bigger issue than just a convenience issue. So I think it's good to see entrepreneurs in Malaysia taking out these bigger challenges, not looking from a very, very small lens, but seeing themselves as a contributor to a global issue or a bigger issue, and they will find that the support will be there waiting for them if they are more ready.
Okay, all right. So it's basically all about like Don't be afraid to kind of build that foundation before you take the big
you
step.
should do that, yes.
Yeah. All right. So Dazriq, what do you think? Like,
I have a similar view to that. I think there's sort of three components that I want to see how entrepreneurship in Malaysia should basically grow or aspire to be. One is actually with regards to talent. And again, I know we spoke about in terms of youth movement and youth contributions to this. I think one of the key mainstream workforce moving forward could be in the entrepreneurship sector. So I think there's a huge potential there, and I hope that with the amount of talent, the diversity of talent into the entrepreneurship space will actually make Malaysia as a front runner, at least in ASEAN, to sort of spur the entrepreneurship practices. Second is with regards to knowledge, and I think it's kind of like very closely related to talent. So knowledge, it can come from thought leadership, about experiencing new technologies or being innovative about it. So I think youth has a lot of capacity in terms of doing that. And have a better receptiveness to try new things or be bold about doing things. And the last thing is with regards to capital. So capital, it could be in terms of funding, resources and stuff like that. So I think this is where the corporates and also the public sector might be a bit more interested moving forward, because I think, and this is tied to the social innovation front, because as I believe that as Malaysia is progressing towards the becoming a developed nation, one of the key areas is actually being innovative in the social space. So I would imagine the government at some point would actually look into the entrepreneurship space to solve certain social issues or deliver more effectively in terms of social welfare. So I think entrepreneurs can play that role as a means in bridging that gap. Private sector also, when we spoke about corporate innovation, entrepreneurship is actually a sort of element in driving or being a catalytic role in terms of innovation for corporate. So I'm hopeful and also optimistic within the next 5 or 10 years, if I may, to see the entrepreneurship space grow exponentially.
that was really great. It's been wonderful to chat with the both of you. It is definitely inspiring to know that businesses are not just for profit, but can and they should contribute to social good. And now that there are these programs such as Massive and Idea by Mad. So next week, we'll be speaking with two social entrepreneurs themselves, tackling the issues on waste management and sustainability. So I hope both of you can tune in to listen to that one. And if you want to know who, then you're just going to have to tune in next week to find out. So don't forget to listen out for us, same day, same time. The show is also available for download on our Facebook page. And until then, I am Sophie, and you're listening to Generation Future Ready. The future is upon us, so remember to stay ready.
You're listening to KDU Campus Radio.